So, Namaste Kapil ji.
Namaskar ji.
Once again. I was just talking to Kapil ji about 5 minutes back and he was sharing a wonderful joke. Of course, I cannot share it now. But let me introduce Kapil ji once again for the benefit of those who have joined this session.
You already introduced me by saying a joke, so I'm a joker.
So we are very lucky to have once again with us Kapil ji. Kapil ji, belated happy birthday from all of us. Your 81st birthday on the 17th of November.
Yes. Very kind of you.
Ji, sir. And our session today is, could we please disable the chat so that our focus is on the session? Srihari, we will open the chat at the break time. So the session, the Vishya is characteristic Indian epistemology. We have been continuing this since today morning, and the session is vernacularization of knowledge in India, Professor Kapoor. A little introduction, small introduction to Professor Kapoor. Can we go to the next slide? Professor Kapil Kapoor is an Indian scholar of linguistics and literature and an authority on India in intellectual traditions. He has been the former Pro-Vice Chancellor of Jawaharlal Nehru University and served as a professor at the Center for Linguistics and English and at the Center for Sanskrit Studies there before retiring in 2005. He is editor-in-chief of the 11-volume Encyclopedia of Hinduism published by Rupa and Company in 2012. Professor Kapil Kapoor has been teaching for 62 years. 41 scholars have worked for PhD and 36 for MPhil under him. He was the Dean of the School of Language, Literature and Cultural Studies, GNU, from 1996 to 99, and Pro-Vice Chancellor of the University from 1999 to 2002. In 2018, he was appointed as the Chairperson of Indian Institute of Advanced Study at Shimla. Previously, he was the Chancellor of Mahatma Gandhi Antarashtriya Hindi Vishwavidyalaya at Worth. His teaching and research areas include literary and linguistic theories, both Indian and Western, the philosophy of language, 19th century British life, literature and thought, and Indian intellectual traditions. He has written and lectured extensively on these themes. The reason why this FDP is because of Professor Kapoor. He has been the Sutradhar, he has been the guiding light, he has been the thought behind weaving this entire FDP together. Once again, sir, pranams, and thank you for being you and guiding us. Look forward to your session, sir. Pranams.
Very kind of you, Richa-ji. You have been, keeping me alive since last year, since COVID time, because if you hadn't been pushing me around to keep my mind alive, I might have succumbed, and people would have prepared some obituaries for me. I disappointed them, thanks to you, and I'm still around and talking. Last time in the earlier lecture, I was talking on the basis of a PPT that I had sent. And I think last 2 or 3 PPTs were not discussed. I don't think that you have remembered to bring that PPT out, because bringing out that the last 2 or 3 PPTs will sum up what all I was trying to say last time. Is it possible? Can it be done?
Yes, sir. We have the access to the PPT. Srihari, can you please take out the PPT from Professor Kapil Kapoor's folder? In a minute, sir. Srihari will help.
Is it this one, sir?
इससे पहले civilization, इससे पहले, even earlier than this.
Yes, sir. I'm just bringing it up.
अच्छा. ये तो बहुत पहले है, चलते जाइए, प्लीज प्लीज प्लीज. Good idea. Give, show them all again. Yes. Yeah, wait a minute. Go back a little. You see, इससे पहले bilateral partnership, the society and the university must bilaterally contribute to each other and promote autonomy, swavalambi. Either the word phrase these days is Atmanirbhar. Swavalambi Gaon, a village is totally autonomous in its needs and it is self-governing in sharing and producing. This is very important, in the deserts of Rajasthan, Thar desert of Jaisalmer area, the water diviners, we call them water diviners, giving the idea that they are some kind of mystical people. No, they are scientists of the highest order. They can, from the sand on the surface, which may be as hot as 57% C or 58 or 60% C, they can gauge at which place under 40 feet of that sand, there is drinking water. There is water. There are wet clay bands, not water, wet clay bands under the desert. And then they have a mechanism. The local desert weed which is there. So he starts digging and planting the weed so that the sand doesn't fall back, and that way he reaches the clay band and then ties up the weed and comes out. At night, the temperature in the desert falls to -15 at that level, and the clay band has drinking water or 3 or 4 buckets of drinking water, which is taken out in the morning by the village. And that drinking water is shared equally in all the houses. Shared equally. That is what I mean by sharing and self-governing. Next, please. Next slide. Small self-employment initiatives like handicrafts and food utilities. It's simple, you can understand. Because, we all look for jobs. Instead of looking for jobs, we should create jobs. And we should create self-employment so that we can, give employment to other people. Right? Next. Help fabricate small nature-friendly technologies. We don't need big technologies which harm nature, which sort of they disturb the environment. Small technologies. You see, you don't drop every ounce of water from the ground, but ones that draw a certain quantity of water all the time from the ground, like our Persian wheels, जो रहट होते थे, और रहट चलते रहते थे, और पानी निकलता रहता था, पानी बहता रहता था, उसमें जितना उसका पानी का exodus होता था, वो पानी सारा, it was refurbished by the next small rain, the next small rain it used to be. It's a technology which is technology and science which has harmed our environment, and we have a hole in the ozone layer. Sometimes there are acid rains in certain parts of the earth, and the temperatures go up or temperatures go down. It's all because huge scientific technologies, behind every automobile you have a technology, and every automobile disturbs the environment, you see. Right, next. Enable replacement technologies to retain avenues of rural livelihood. We should not have those technologies which take away jobs, like the harvester I said. We should have those small technologies which make the individual's work on the field easier and more comfortable, but doesn't take away his job. Next, promote revision architecture for homes, which villagers are very reluctant to destroy or rebuild. And civic work in drainage and streets, this has to be done with stones and not with bricks. And that is the lesson we learn from Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. It is only the stone laid streets, which will bear the burden of the bullock cart during the rainy season, and will remain intact. Next, please. This was, I told you, this was the cow dung, dung cakes. वो जो उपले बनाने की ये मशीन है, क्योंकि जब बच्चे पड़ जाते हैं तो वो गोबर में हाथ लगाना उनको अच्छा नहीं लगता। पर अगर आप गोबर से उपले बना के, उपलों के दो प्रयोग हैं, एक फ्यूल, घर में उससे रोटी पकती थी, और दूसरा उसका है, उसकी खाद बनती है। अगर जो गोबर, अगर in a state like Haryana or any other state, India is a cattle rich state. In fact, our economy was based on agriculture and cattle. And cattle अगर आप cow dung use नहीं करेंगे, वो waste, वो garbage बनता जाएगा, तो धीरे धीरे the number of cattle maintained by people will go down, and we will be then taking artificial, polypacked milks and things of the sort. And the health of the people will go down. There will be more hospitals, more institutes, all India institutes of medical sciences, more doctors, and many, many more sick people. So we have to make use of the cow dung. And if you can't do it by hand, which was done, then we have to have machines which do it. Now, machines which use SIMs and chips, the modern technology, cannot be useful in villages, because the same chip machines will have to be sent to bigger cities for replacement and repair, and they will be expensive machines. One such machine with SIMs and chip will cost more than 2 or 3 or 4 lakh rupees. But this one was made by the local ironsmith. लोहार ने बनाई 12,000 रुपए में. 12,000 रुपए में. इसमें थोड़ा काउ डंग केक जो निकलता है लेफ्ट से, वो थोड़ा गीला रहता था, और उसको सुखाने के बहुत तरीके हैं. उसके नीचे काउ डंग केक्स की ही आग जलाई जा सकती है, और वो सूख जाएंगे, और ये हाथ से भी चलती है और बिजली से भी चलती है. Next. Let's explain. This is the single family cow dung biogas cylinder and biogas. There is a burner here, and there is the churner, and the churner comes here, and then you light up the thing, and you get the fuel. It was again testing. It was to be tested, but then I left the university. In any case, we didn't have an engineering department. Next. Courses on the annual. Integrated farming, food, dairy technologies and marketing. Integrated farming means that you produce crops, and then you also make produce out of it. If you have planted fruit trees, then you make fruit juices also there itself. And then you market it also yourself. Integrated. And if you have integrated farming, you have an agriculture farm with a dairy farm, and you can base the whole thing on Indian seed variety and Indian cattle, Indian cow, and in that. And that will bring you enormous revenue. And also they are far more suited to our climate, and they are good for our health. Rural livelihood entrepreneurship, water and land management. There have been beautiful experiments in Rajasthan, and I am forgetting the name of the great gentleman, who developed the notion of check dams, and the dry Rajasthan, many rivulets which had gone dry, they came to life again. It's like rivers or rivulets being reborn. Unki rebirth hoti hai. And health and sanitation, of course. Generally, they are healthy because their food is healthy. Sanitation is a little poor because corporate activity has to be taken care of. It's not taken care of by the government. Next. We look forward to anyways, forget it. This was our university looking forward to collab. And look at the number 3, rural urbanization and urban ruralization. What India needs is the rural areas to be urbanized in the sense of sanitation, drainage, etc. Right? And, and electricity. And the urban cities, which have become, dens of crime and pollution, they need to be ruralized. Now, ruralization of urban areas began in Europe itself in the 19th century itself. So many big, great cities of Europe, like Vienna, you see, you have no building more than 3 stories. And Europe is a continuously inhabited land. Continuously, as you move out of the city, you have single-story cottages and cottages. These are the villages, but their architecture, I mean the internal architecture in levels of comfort, their livelihood, etc. They are all there, and the people somehow still, because they are with a little gap from the city, and their lifestyle is not along automobile infested roads. So those people are visibly different from the city people. They are more relaxed. So we need to do something like that in future. Next. Development without social and individual cost. Technology without unemployment. Low-cost technologies that are nature-friendly, and change in social and public policy focus from the cities to the village. Next, please. Next.
This is the last slide, sir.
Take out those three images. Civilizational choices. Kindly
sure.
put that, civilizational choices. Civilizational choices. You see, all that we've been talking about, I told you in the village it was a garbage-free lifestyle. In the whole village, Khanpur Kala, in 2010, which is only 100 kilometers from Delhi, there was no garbage. No garbage. But here, I am sitting in my flat. We are two, me and Mrs. Kapoor. We produce 2 bags of garbage every day. And we are surrounded by, luckily we are not really modern, and our house is also not very modern. In fact, if somebody says that आपने सफेदी नहीं कराई, ये नहीं कराया, तो मैं कहता हूं कि हमारे यहाँ जो आना चाहता है वही आता है, जिसने नहीं आना वो नहीं आता, हमें कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. But I mean, this is the climax of Western, high technology civilization, which promotes individualism. You see, the Western civilization promotes individualism, everybody looking after himself or herself. And at the end of it, when you grow old, you are living surrounded by the artifacts. When you were young, your husband was young, तो आप लोग घूमते थे, दुनिया की चीजें लाके वो सब दीवारों पे लगी हुई हैं, and you are sitting alone. As my mother used to say in Punjabi, कि काका बुढ़ापे च पैसे नहीं थुड़दे, मनुख थुड़ जांदे ने. I will paraphrase it. My mother used to tell me, son, as you grow old, you are never short of money. You are short of human beings. Here is an example. This old lady is sitting all by herself. Now move to the next slide. Move to this one. Now this lady is so happy. She is not surrounded by memories. She is living in the present. She is not living in memories. In the present, because just look over her left shoulder. There is a grandson peeping over her left shoulder. Grandson. So, these are civilizational choices. How do you live? Do you want to live when you grow old? Do you want to live with human beings, with people? Or as you grow old, you want to live with your memories all by yourself, right? So this is it. Thank you very much. And we close this chapter. Close this chapter. Come now to today's subject. Today's subject is vernacularization of knowledge in India. A little background is necessary. I have often repeatedly said that India is a knowledge-centered civilization from day one, and the world's oldest knowledge-centered civilization. Because the world's oldest book, Rig Veda, was composed here. The world's oldest poetry was composed here. The world's oldest prose was composed here. Some of the world's sciences originated here. You see, phonetics, grammar, arithmetic, the numerals. The other day, somebody was telling you all that numerals, zero, the concept of zero, and the numerals are called hinse. In a local language, उनको कहते हैं hinse. Hinse is a Arabic word. Our numerals, they were taken, they went to Iran, and from Iran they went to Arabia, from Arab countries they went to Europe. So we are the source of the numerals 1 to 9. 1 से 9 की हमारी है. Decimal system हमारा है. Pi की value हमारी है. The distance of sun from the earth भी हमारा ही counting है. You see? So we are the world's oldest knowledge-centered civilization. ये अलग बात है कि हमको कोई पढ़ाता नहीं तो हमें अपने पे बड़ा एक हीन भावना होती है कि अरे हम तो बैकवर्ड हैं, हमारे यहाँ तो बड़ा गरीबी है, बड़ा धक्का रहता है, कुछ नहीं है, और हमारी किताबों में सारा ज्ञान जो है हम वेस्ट से लाते हैं. That is our own foolish choice, but there is no dearth of in fact, the number of knowledge texts in our knowledge resource languages, Sanskrit, Pali, Prakrit, and Old Tamil, the total number of intellectual granthas is more than that in all the world's language put together. उन सबसे ज्यादा ग्रंथ हमारे यहाँ हैं. आपको हैरानगी होगी कि अभी हमें सबका पता नहीं है. हमें पता है कि लाइब्रेरियां जलाई गई. लाइब्रेरीज यूज्ड टू बी लाइब्रेरीज ऑफ मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट्स. उन दिनों में मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट्स होते थे. लाइब्रेरीज जलाई गई. द नालंदा लाइब्रेरी burned for 6 months. Nalanda University had a 9-story library. 9-story. 9 मंजिलों की लाइब्रेरी थी जो 6 महीने जलती रही. सब हुआ, फिर भी हमारे पास इस वक्त 1 करोड़ से ज्यादा मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट हैं. 1 करोड़ से ज्यादा. I mean, imagine the total number of manuscripts, perhaps, of the Bible, old manuscripts in Europe is about 60,000. 1 करोड़ से ज्यादा मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट्स हैं भिन्न भिन्न साइंसेज में, विषयों पे, जिनको अभी हमने 70% से तो मट्टी भी नहीं झाड़ी. पढ़ना तो दूर, उनको फिर से देखना अलग, मट्टी भी नहीं झाड़ी. So we are a very old knowledge centered civilization. And if a civilization characterized by knowledge, a knowledge that has continued to live. You see, knowledge that has continued to live. What do you mean by the continuity of a civilization? Civilization जो continuous है, इसका मतलब है कि उसका ज्ञान जो है वो अवच्छिन्न है और वो टूटा नहीं है. वो ज्ञान वैसे का वैसा अभी भी अवेलेबल है हमको, अभी भी अवेलेबल है. ये कंटिन्यूटी है. मैं एक एग्जांपल देता हूं आपको. ईसा से 700 BC, Panini composed a grammar, first अध्याय. And the first 2 rules, sutras, have 2 technical words, technical terminology. The first sutra is Vriddhi Adech. Second sutra is Adhaing Gun, Vriddhi and Gun. These are technical words in Ashtadhyayi. Vriddhi or Gun. Ask anybody in India today, speaking any language, क्या आपको वृद्धि का शब्द का अर्थ आता है? सबको आता है. वृद्धि का मतलब है बढ़ना, गुण का मतलब है क्वालिटी. जो टेक्निकल शब्द 2800 साल पहले थे, वो आज आम भाषा के शब्द बन गए हैं. Those words that were technical words 2800 years ago have become words of common ordinary language today. So this is not just the continuity of words, it is the continuity of ideas, continuity of knowledge. So we have had this is you can knowledge text. We have maintained our knowledge text. That's why we still have those knowledge texts. We maintained the knowledge text by developing 6 sciences: Vedanga, Vedanga, sciences auxiliary to the Vedas, and Vedangas and Katha Pravachana Parampara. We have maintained our knowledge text through sciences like phonetics, grammar, meter, etc., and also by the mode of expounding the text orally, katha pravachan जिसको कहते हैं, इससे रखा है, हमने कंट्रोल किया है. तो इसलिए मेंटेन किया है क्योंकि हमारा समाज शुरू से, हमारे समाज में ज्ञान को बड़ा ऊंचा स्थान प्राप्त था. राजा एक जगह पूजा जाता है, ज्ञानी सर्वत्र पूज्यते. ये हमारी बड़ी कॉमन सेइंग है. तो ज्ञान का बहुत महत्व है हमारे समाज में. जिन्होंने भगवत गीता पढ़ी है उनको पता है कि दूसरे और तीसरे चैप्टर में भगवान कृष्ण कर्म और ज्ञान और फिर ज्ञान कर्म समुच्चय की बात कैसे करते हैं. और भगवत गीता में कृष्ण क्या कहते हैं? नथिंग प्यूरिफाइज लाइक नॉलेज. नॉलेज इज ए ग्रेट प्यूरिफायर, even greater than fire. Fire also purifies, but greater than that, knowledge is a purifier. So हमने इन ग्रंथों को संभाल के रखा और हमारी सिविलाइजेशन जीवित है और जीवित रही, कहीं नहीं टूटाव नहीं हुआ. परंतु but off and on, this great knowledge has been lost. We have cycles of loss and recovery. This great knowledge has been lost very often, but then it has been recovered. It is a calculation that 28 times in more than 10,000 years of our history, attested history, उससे पहले भी रहा होगा, पर 10,000 साल का तो हमें ज्ञान है क्योंकि 8-8 हजार साल पुरानी चीजें हमारी जमीन के नीचे से निकली हैं और उनको हमें डेटिंग कर ली है. तो 10,000 साल में 28 बार, 28 times the knowledge was lost and 28 times it was recovered. There is a cycle of loss and recovery. ज्ञान का खो जाना और ज्ञान का पुनर्जागरण करना, उसे फिर ज्ञान को वापस लाना. Last major time it happened, attest is Mahabharat. After the war of Mahabharat, knowledge was lost. And we have the rise of materialist skeptics who said that Vedic mantras are meaningless. कोई अर्थ नहीं है इनका, they are nirarthak, and argued that we should devote ourselves to other things and not to these rhapsodies of the knaves. ये जो rhapsodies of the knaves. So the whole Vedic knowledge, the Vedic values were dismissed after the Mahabharat war, because what is the use of a knowledge that cannot prevent massive carnage? 36 lakh people died in the Mahabharat war in 2 days. Very much something like that happened to Europe after the First and Second World War. People lost faith in the Enlightenment project, that the Reason project, and they said that you go back to your values, only then we will have the recovery. Hua, but gradually we recovered. भागवत धर्म का ओरिजिन हुआ और स्लोली भागवत धर्म जो था वैष्णव धर्म में और फिर led to the Buddhist philosophy also. There were several growths. There was one line of the theistic and the one line of rationalist approach. This materialist skepticism led to Mahatma Buddha. Now Mahatma Buddha is a materialist, but he is an ethical materialist. He is not a scotch drinking materialist. He is an ethical materialist. Ethical materialism of Mahatma Buddha. So it led to these shutdowns. तो ये हुआ, कई बार हुआ. और मोस्ट रिसेंट हिस्ट्री में 11वीं शताब्दी के पास जब अरब इन्वेडिंग आर्मीज आई इंडिया में, अरब इन्वेडिंग आर्मीज एंटर्ड इंडिया आफ्टर they had conquered and converted Iran in 30 years. The Arab invading armies conquered the great valiant Persians who had the great empire, Persian empires. The Iranians were defeated and converted in 30 years. But as Karl Marx notes, it took the Arab invading armies 400 years to cover 900 miles from the border of India to Delhi. To come from the border of India to Delhi, 900 miles, it took the Arab invading armies 400 years. When they had converted and destroyed Iran in 30 years. This is useful information for those who keep saying कि हिंदू लोग तो हर वक्त हारते ही रहे, हम लोग हारते रहे. In fact, Karl Marx wonders explicitly, how did Hindus build such a resistance? They fought every inch was fought. And we are the only civilization which has successfully resisted complete conversion to Islam. You see? So it is not done because we are cowards. It was done because we were very, very brave people. As Al-Biruni said, Hindus are not afraid of death. They always speak the truth and they are very proud of their knowledge. After all, why do you fight? You fight to defend something. You fight to defend what? To defend your civilization of knowledge. अपने ज्ञान की जो संस्कृत सभ्यता थी उसको बचाने के लिए हमारे बुजुर्गों ने लड़ा, सिर कटा दिए. गुरु तेग बहादुर, गुरु अर्जुन देव, गोविंद सिंह के बेटे, you go on counting, endless number of people. Maharana Pratap, if Maharana Pratap had agreed to to accept Akbar as the king, he would have made the Governor General of Rajasthan. बड़े आराम से रहता कोठी में. No, he didn't choose that. Or Shivaji for that matter. Any number of kings, these are the major names. But the history is dotted with people who opposed the invading armies every inch. Remember, Alexander who conquered the world. He entered India, came up to only Beas River. And then his armies revolted because they heard that so far we have been meeting only small kings. But there is a Nand Empire which has 20,000 armored fighting elephants and an army of 9 lakh soldiers. So the great Alexander's forces, they revolted and they went back. So please don't think that we are a cowardly country or that we can lose easily. We can't, we won't, you see. And our civilization has survived for 10,000, it will continue to survive. But I am looking at this survival through not Shastra today, but through Shastra. Not through Shastra, but Shastra. I have mentioned some examples of Shastra, but examples of Shastra. अब देखिए, loss हुआ, मैंने कहा latest loss हुआ when the Arab invaders came. What did they do? They banned all Sanskrit learning. They burnt the universities, world's oldest universities, Taxila, and Nalanda, and वो जो इधर थी गुजरात में जो थी, they burnt the libraries, they burnt the universities, shut them down, burnt the libraries, stopped the learning and teaching of Sanskrit. And when that happened, the knowledge which was enshrined in Sanskrit texts, it would have finished. But it didn't finish because in the 11th century, our great minds, Before that, in fact, our great minds, they started rendering the classical intellectual texts into the ordinary languages of the people, vernacularization. They started vernacularizing the text. If they started with oral expositions, and then they sat down and translated the text. So many times it was lost. And in one of my papers, Loss and Recovery, if you want more details, you can go to the Google and enter and ask for the paper Loss and Recovery in the Indian Tradition. Indian Tradition, you will get lots of details. In that article or talk, lecture, it was a lecture in Calcutta, I said that in the later, there are 28 Vyasas. That means Vyas is not just a name, it's also a parampara, tradition. In the case of Veda Vyasa of Mahabharata, he is an individual. But Vyasa Parampara is a tradition. It's a tradition of rediscovering the knowledge, which essentially meant reconstructing the Rig Veda. And it was done 28 times. It was 9. In fact, last it was done in 19th century, the 29th time by Max Muller. Max Muller, जिसको हमारे लोग मोक्ष मुलर भी कहते हैं, मोक्ष, और उसको जो ट्रेडिशनल स्कॉलर्स हैं, पर जो अंग्रेजी पढ़े लिखे स्कॉलर्स हैं, वो उसको बहुत गाली देते हैं कि वो तो क्रिश्चियनिटी फैला रहा था, उसने कहा कि इन किताबों में बड़ी गलत चीजें हैं, he wanted to show, so he was an agent of the proselytizers, all utter nonsense. Max Muller, who was a German, was given a job in the British University, Cambridge or Oxford, and he lived and worked there for 62 years. And for 62 years, he worked on the broken, fragmented, torn manuscripts of Sanskrit. And he built and put together 23 texts. 23 हमारे ग्रंथों का पुनर्निर्माण किया मैक्स म्यूलर ने. और जो लोग उनको गाली देते हैं, मैं उनको कहता हूं, तुम एक पैराग्राफ तो रिकंस्ट्रक्ट कर दो भैया किसी मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट का. 23 किताबें उसने रिकंस्ट्रक्ट की, इंक्लूडिंग द ऋग्वेद. Till middle of the 19th century, all Rigved copies had been lost. But it is Max Muller who rebuilt the text, had it printed and all that. And then, Indian Pandits also again, started doing effort. Usko dekh ke banaya gaya manuscripts mein se. So you see, in my paper, in my lecture, I called Max Muller the 29th Vyasa. 29th Vyasa. And many people objected, but I stick to it. 29th Vyasa. He worked on Indian text for 62 years. How many Indians have worked on Indian text for 62 years? Huh? How many do? यहाँ तो कोई करता ही नहीं. हम तो कहते हैं अरे बेकार है, पुरानी चीजें हैं, फटी किताबें, क्या करना है इनको, कोई बढ़िया सी चीजें देखते हैं या पढ़ते हैं. आजकल तो सारा डिजिटल हो गया है, पर मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट तो डिजिटल नहीं हुए भैया, सारा ज्ञान तो डिजिटलाइज नहीं हुआ, हो भी नहीं सकता. और then 62 years, when he was about 82, he was asked that Mr. Max Muller, ऐसे अच्छे लोगों को याद करना चाहिए, उनकी स्तुति करनी चाहिए, उससे हम लोगों को भी एनर्जी मिलती है. उसको पूछा गया कि 62 साल आपने काम किया भारतवर्ष के ग्रंथों पे, पर आप एक बार भी भारतवर्ष नहीं गए. You never went there. उन्होंने कहा, when I had money, when I had time, I had no money. And now I have no time. I have still to do so much. But if, ध्यान से सुनिए, but if I ever go to India, I will go to Varanasi and will like to be cremated there. मैं वाराणसी जाना चाहूंगा और मैं चाहूंगा कि मेरी अंत्येष्टि वाराणसी के कुशावर्त घाट पे हो. Do you think this was a man who was doing proselytizing, who was converting Indian people by his work? Not at all. You see, a sage. In fact, he's like a rishi. He was a rishi. And when Bal Gangadhar Tilak was arrested by the British, it is Max Muller who had him released. And another fact I tell you, when Thomas Alva Edison created his record, the record, first record, and he needed a voice. He was to demonstrate his record in a recorder in London before an audience, and he needed a voice. He asked Max Muller to record, and Max Muller recorded, and it was played. And you know what did Max Muller record? Gayatri Mantra. Gayatri Mantra was the mantra which was first recorded by that text. So you see, stop thinking less of yourself, and stop thinking that people like, and these are great people who have worked on our tradition and brought it back. In fact, in the recovery of our knowledge in the 20th, 19th century, the Europeans have played a very big part, far more than Indians, far more than Indians. Anyways, so when the tradition is lost, how is it recovered? How do you recover it? There are mechanisms of recovery. For example, a different kind of recension is made of the same text. I'll give you one example. Panini's Ashtadhyayi, which was 7th century BC grammar, because it had technical terms which were technical terms close to the Vedanta philosophy. So the Buddhist grammarian Chandra, who did not believe in Vedanta, what did he do? He removed the first 2 chapters of Ashtadhyayi and took out the terms from the text and prepared a version of Ashtadhyayi without meta language. So you see, this is a reduction, just as Panchatantra was redacted into Hitopadesha. See, like this. So a big text is, adjusted and made a new text. That is one mechanism. The second mechanism is, of course, there are 7 or 9. I will talk of only 2 or 3 major 3 or 4 major. This is one, redaction. You make a new edition, like, something, a briefer or a shorter, not untrue, quite close to the original, but, you reconstruct that. And जैसे महाभारत में भगवत गीता तो उन्होंने सुना दी कृष्ण ने, जब लड़ाई खत्म हो गई तो अर्जुन को वो भूल गई सारी, तो अर्जुन ने कहा महाराज जी एक बार फिर सुना दो, तो कृष्ण जी बोले भैया मुझे भी याद नहीं मैंने क्या कहा था तुम्हें, हैं? पर उन्होंने कुछ उसको ब्रीफ बातें बताई, उसको कहा जाता है अनुगीता। महाभारत में एक अनुगीता भी है। तो ये जो अनुगीता है ये एक रिसेंशन है गीता की रिसेंशन, ठीक है। देन द अदर मेथड ऑफ कोर्स इज ट्रांसलेशन, टेक्स्ट को ट्रांसलेट करना, राइट। थर्ड मेथड इज कमेंटरी, टेक्स्ट के ऊपर टीका लिखना। हमारी टीका परंपरा, कमेंट्री ट्रेडिशन इज वेरी स्ट्रांग इन इंडिया। In every discipline, there is a commentary on commentary on commentary on commentary. And the whole tradition, for example, the grammatical tradition from 7th century BC to 1795, you have continuous tradition of thinking on grammar. And in 1795, a Kannadiga, Nagesh Bhatt wrote a wonderful theoretical book which West got to write only in the 21st century or 20th century. It was Vyakarana Siddhanta Manjusha, a collection of principles of grammar, not just grammar, but the theory of grammar. He prepared in 1795. So, टीका परंपरा बहुत बड़ी परंपरा है। भगवत गीता की टीकाएं शंकराचार्य से लेके विनोबा भावे और अरुण शौरी तक, हर एक, every great Indian thinker, every person who thought he is a great thinker, है ना, every person who thought he is a great thinker, he wants to write a commentary on Bhagavad Gita. That is the summum bonum, कि आपको कितना समझ आया, you check you test your this. So that is a टीका परंपरा बड़ी. So, and great minds Great minds devoted, our exegetes were very great minds, and they kept the tradition of thinking alive. Tradition of thinking alive. Then, along with that, there is the vernacularization. Vernacularization means, one, of course, it means translation. It can be a literal translation or it can be a close translation, transliteration. Huh? No, not transliteration. I mean a translation in spirit or translation literally, literally. And apart from that, vernacularization also means expounding the text in the language of the people. Lecture दे के किताब, जैसे आजकल मास्टर टीचर लोग हमारे जैसे, अब मैं भी जो कर रहा हूं, मैं एक बड़ी परंपरा को लोक भाषा में, आम भाषा में, किस भाषा में समझा रहा हूं. तो ये भी एक तरीका है कि टेक्स्ट को एक्सपाउंड करना. If I suppose tomorrow, if Richa ji manages to make me talk on Nyaya Vaisheshik philosophy, so I will be expounding the philosophy in the language of the people, in today's language, right? I hope she hasn't got the idea. Then, Tika Parampara. And then thirdly, apart from that, you see, there is a rewriting also. Abridgment. जैसे abridged शेक्सपियर, abridged डिकन्स, है ना, एक abridgment बनाना, तो आपको संक्षिप्त महाभारत मिल जाएगी पुराने जमाने से. You'll be surprised that the more than 1 lakh श्लोक महाभारत, in Mahabharata itself is summed up in 162 shlokas. उसकी पूरी कहानी 162 श्लोकों में बताई गई है. अगर आप सारी नहीं पढ़ते, वो पढ़ के आप अगर लोगों से चर्चा करेंगे, लोग बड़े इंप्रेस होंगे, कहेंगे अरे इन्होंने तो पूरी महाभारत पढ़ रखी है, है ना. इजी वे is what I said the other day, powdering the nose scholarship. तो ये हो जाएगा. Then vernacularization. Now let me come to the vernacularization tradition proper. Kamban, Tamil Nadu has a great role. Tamil Nadu has a very great role in the maintenance of India's knowledge tradition. Very few people, and what is happening in Tamil Nadu today, people may not believe, but Tamil Nadu has the greatest contribution in maintaining India's knowledge tradition. Kamban, in 9th century AD, Kamban in 9th century AD translated Valmiki's Ramayana into Tamil. 9th century. Imagine. And Kamban Ramayana usko कहते हैं. अब naturally every translation done at a time is in the context of the time and involves recontextualization of the text. Recontextualization. तो वो थोड़ा कभी कोई एपिसोड या कोई वर्ड्स एडजस्ट अडेप्ट किए जाते हैं to the time and the people, the audience. But Kamban Ramayana is a celebrated work. It is a celebrated work, you see. 2 centuries later, 1.5 century later, there was the great Ramanujacharya. Ramanujacharya was born in Sri Perumbadur. And those who are listening and are young, my request or my suggestion is that travel around the country, see the places which are associated with great minds and great people and great warriors. And the country is full of them, dotted with them. We have a phenomenal memory. We have not forgotten anything. In 20 places you will find, people will tell you कि यहाँ द्रौपदी ने खाना पकाया था जब पांडवों को अज्ञातवास था. When the Pandavas were in exile, Draupadi cooked the food here. Phenomenal memory. 5,000 years. पुरानी बातें भी याद हैं हमको. In Kathiawad, where there is Dwaraka, the Kathi tribal women who are close to the cow herds of Vrindavan. They are the same genetic race. The Kathi women of Kathiawar even today wear black because Krishna died there. And Krishna was a son-in-law of the Kathi tribe in a way. वो son-in-law थे. तो the greatest mourning in history, 5000 साल से उनको याद है और वो काले कपड़े पहनते हैं. तो वे phenomenal memory. तो आप ट्रैवल करिए. अब शंकराचार्य का नाम बड़ा सुना है. कालड़ी जाइए जहां वो पैदा हुए थे. वो जो नदी है जिसके बारे में कहानी है कि ग्रा ने उसको पकड़ लिया था, है ना. इस तरह प्लीज, then everything comes alive. ये वर्ड्स नहीं है. This country has retained everything associated with its great tradition. There are 21 शक्तिपीठ हैं, 12 वो शिवलिंग महा जिनको कहते हैं वो हैं, and so many other things. 51 places, 101 places, जैन तीर्थ हैं, बौद्ध तीर्थ हैं, और जहां भी आप जाएंगे आपको एक वाइब्रेशन मिलती है, because great people have set their foot in that place. तो कंबर रामायण के बाद रामानुजाचार्य सिरी परम्बदूर गांव है जहां पे अनफॉर्चुनेटली राजीव गांधी जी का फिर बॉम्ब ब्लास्ट हुआ था. सिरी परम्बदूर में हुआ था. सिरी परम्बदूर में अभी भी वो मंदिर है, अभी भी वो घर है जहां रामानुजाचार्य जी का जन्म हुआ था. उनके पिताजी उस मंदिर के प्रीस्ट थे. उसी गांव में रामानुजाचार्य ने अध्ययन किया. वो ऑक्सफोर्ड या हार्वर्ड यूनिवर्सिटी नहीं गए थे रामानुजाचार्य, उसी गांव में ही पढ़े थे. और इतने विद्वान, उन्होंने उसी गांव में अपने प्रवचन शुरू किए. ही स्टार्टेड गिविंग lectures expounding Brahma Sutra, Vedanta Sutra in Tamil. This is vernacularization. In Tamil to the people. And when the king objected, that no, Vedic knowledge you have to only express in Sanskrit. Chola king, he was a Chola king, Tamil king, Chola king. He said, I am only following the path of Mahatma Buddha. Because Mahatma Buddha talked to the people in the language of the people. So he said, okay, then you leave my country. And he left. Those who had traveled from Bangalore to Mysore, halfway there is a town, Mandya. The king of Mandya welcomed him and gave him succor. Melkote is a hill in the Mandya territory, about 3,000 feet high. And in Melkote, he was asked to go to Melkote because there was an ancient temple, Narasingha अवतार. पता नहीं सब लोग जानते भी है कि नहीं. जब पिलर टूटा और उसमें नरसिंह के रूप में विष्णु निकले और उनका इतना क्रोध था, उन्होंने प्रहलाद के फादर को चीर दिया. उसके बाद भी वो गुस्से में कांपते रहे. तो क्रोध का जो उनका उस वक्त था, तो प्रहलाद, there is a temple of Narsingh and across there is the temple of Prahlad also, Melkote. And Melkote is a heavenly place. कभी आप जाइए. In the temple there is a platform. Ramanujacharya sat on that platform for 12 years and expounded Brahma Sutras in Tamil. Later on he sat down, he wrote them in Sanskrit. It is available today as Shri Bhashya. It is called Shri Bhashya. So Ramanujacharya, Kamban was the pioneer of vernacularizing classical great poetry, Ramayana. And Ramanujacharya was the pioneer of translating, vernacularizing Shastra, philosophy. Now come round. This process of vernacularization happened all over India. Come to Karnataka, Basavanna. He wrote his verses based on Vedic thought. He wrote the verses in Kannada Bhasha. Come to Maharashtra, Gyaneshwar. He gave his discourses in Marathi. Gyaneshwar gave his discourses on Bhagavad Gita in Marathi at the ripe age of 15. 10 plus 5. He was only 15 years old when he gave his discourses on Bhagavad Gita, which are still available. They are called Gyaneshwari. Gyaneshwari. And if you find time, if you have nothing else to do, kindly read Gyaneshwari. It is available in many Indian languages. You see, in many Indian languages. And you will find that the questions which will come to you if you read Bhagavad Gita today, all those questions have been taken up by Gyaneshwar and answered. So Gyaneshwari. And you know, at the age of 21, he took Jivant Samadhi. Jivit Samadhi le li at the age of 21, Alindi mein. Alindi is near Pune. And the people of Maharashtra revere Gyaneshwar like nobody else. They call him Gyanoba. Knowledge embodiment. Embodiment of knowledge. Embodiment of knowledge. So Gyaneshwar ji needed a little special. Ramanujacharya ji also needed a special. But you know, tales worth telling जो होती हैं, क्योंकि रामानुजाचार्य जी तो 120 साल जिए, 120 years. And let me give you one story about Ramanujacharya also. This is truthful story. You see, he was 90 years old when there was a Muslim invasion of Karnataka, and Malik Kafur का आपने सुना होगा, and Ramanujacharya's personal idol of Krishna was taken away because the commander thought that the princess, Delhi princess, it will be a good toy for the princess, Mughal princess, Mughal nahi, the princess, Khilji prince or the princess in Delhi at that time, Sultanate period. So he took it there. Ramanujacharya ji learned that my deity, जिनकी मैं वर्शिप करता हूँ, वो ले गए. He walked to Delhi at the age of 90. He went to the court. दिव्य दृष्टि थी, ज्ञान था, पता था कहाँ है. He went to the court and met the Sultan and said that my deity is in your house. He said, if you know so much from that distance, then you get it. You have power, you get it. And they say, this of course is a legend, that he uttered a stotra, and that princess holding that murti herself came there, and she told her father, ye hai inki. And the king gave it to him. He brought it back, but that princess had become a devotee, a Muslim princess, and she came there. She came all the way to Melkote. And if you go to Melkote, in that temple where Bhagwan Krishna का विग्रह है, उनके पास ही, टांग लेग के पास ही उस मुस्लिम प्रिंसेस का भी विग्रह बना हुआ है, उसका भी विग्रह है. और अक्रॉस द हिल ऐसे सामने एक चबूतरा है, because she was Muslim, she was not allowed to go into the temple. She stayed there, but she worshipped and all that. And when she died, they say a light moved from that place to the temple. So they made a vigrah of that. These are rich stories of our country. And they are actually, I mean, you can see them there. You can see them happening before your eyes. Anyways, so we come to Gyaneshwar. From Gyaneshwar, let's come to Maharashtra, come to Gujarat. And you are Narsi Mehta. From there you come to Punjab, to Rajasthan. You have Mirabai. Mirabai was not the first. There were hundreds of Mirabais before Mirabai in Rajasthan. You see? And I need not tell you about Mirabai. If you don't know much, and if you want to know, then I suggest that you see the 1935 film Meera, M-E-E-R-A, 1935 film, in which great divine M.S. Subbalakshmi. Have you heard of M.S. Subbalakshmi? The great classical singer of Tamil Nadu? M.S. Subbalakshmi, a divinely beautiful woman, divinely beautiful lady. And in 1935, at the age of 21, she herself played the role of Meera. and she sang the bhajans of Meera in the film, in that film. And, in the final, it is in 4 parts. It is in the archives of All India Radio. But you fill into your, आजकल तो आपके पास लैपटॉप है, वहां भरिए 1935 मीरा और फिल्म को आराम से देखिए. Don't look at it like films you see by current heroes and heroines. You see, this is a different film, but it is a very, very great, because it is great in depth. In the final scene at the end, when she reaches Dwaraka, Meera, Dwarkadhish के मंदिर में, when she reaches the temple, वो जो विग्रह जहाँ है, गर्भगृह, वो दरवाजे बंद हैं, तब वो जो भजन गाती है ना मैं सुबलक्ष्मी कि सुनो मेरी मनोव्यथा. कितना ब्यूटीफुल शब्द मीरा ने बनाया है, मनोव्यथा, मन की व्यथा. And she prays to the Lord that come, you have to come now. Will you, क्या त्याग सकोगे मुझको? Can you give me up? She asking the Lord, can you give me up? Can you give me up? इसलिए you, and you know that vilapa is so powerful that you will forget that you are watching a film. You will feel that you are actually listening to Meera. And you know, at the climax then, the door opens and the Vigrah say, Krishna emerges and spreads his arms like this, and Meera runs. By that time, her Mewar king ke Raja Ratan Singh ki wife thi. She was a Rathore princess, married into the Sisodias, 2 of the finest clans of Rajputs of India. And still see this freedom that people in India, women enjoyed. The king, her husband, gave her freedom to follow her path, but sought one concession: you must allow me to marry, because I have to have the next generation to rule the kingdom. But you, she said, I am married to Krishna, so I am not married to you. He said, fine, you follow your path, you stay here. And then at the end, you know, when she left that place, when they left Mewar, there was a drought, there was bad weather. People started complaining that एक divine lady, divine हमारी queen थी, उसको तुमने देश निकाला दे दिया, उसको वापस लाओ. People demanded her back. So Ratan Singh went in her search. And when the door opens and Krishna, she runs. At that time, Ratan Singh reaches and holds. He's able to hold only the end of her sari. But she runs a little bit. It's actual fact. She falls down. The body is dead. And a light emerges and merges with the Vigraha in Krishna. देखिए साहब कभी. See the film. And then you will realize the power. Meera is not just a कि मीरा ने कविता लिख दी है और ये कर दिया है. क्या स्ट्रेंथ है, क्या पावर है उसमें, क्या पावर है कि पत्थर में से भगवान निकल आता है. कितनी पावर है. That power you have to feel. So that is, I have been in Rajasthan. Come to Punjab, and you have not only Guru Nanak, you have Shah Hussain, a Muslim poet, who says, who talks of the wedding shawl that is woven by women of the family for the girl who is to get married. And in a poem, he traces the different phases and stages of her life. That shawl is so precious. He cannot give it to anybody if somebody asks. But a time comes, because time changes. And उसका रंग बदल जाता है. सालूदा रंग जावना. The colors have to fade. And the colors fade. And a time comes when that dushal becomes the pocha. वो पोछा बन जाता है. In the meantime, the husband has died. And now what is she? ये अब सालू दुशाला जो अब ये पोछा बन गया है, ये किसका है? Shah Hussain asked. ये किसका है? And Shah Hussain says, ए सालू उनीदा, उन्हीं का है. किनका? एक श्याम बिंद्रा बन सुनीदा. It belongs to the Shyam of Vrindavan. And this is Shah Hussain. Shah Hussain, you know. And then Guru Nanak, who can beat Guru Nanak in his Bani? The greatest, the final definition of Brahman is in his Moola Mantra. Ek Onkar Satguru Prasad. Pura. It will take me half an hour to explain that Moola Mantra. You see, then go to Banaras, you have Ramanand. Go to Orissa, you have Sarala Das. Go to Bengal, you have Jayadeva. Go to Assam, you have Shankar Deva. And come back to Tamil Nadu. The first bhakti poetess is a woman. And you know, we keep listening to feminist talks and feminism and feminist theories. See? Show me a woman poet in England in 5th century AD. Anywhere in Europe, anywhere in the world, we have the first poet of bhakti poetess is a poetess. Andal. Andal was an abandoned girl found by the gardener of the Tanjavur temple, you know, and that gardener used to every day pick flowers and take them garland की तरह ले जाते थे, मंदिर में देते थे पुजारियों को. And he found a little girl. He brought her up. And as she grew up, started walking, she will walk with her father and pick the flowers. And then as she grew older, she also made mala, garland. And as she grew older, she went with her father to the temple. And she also offered. And there she heard stotras being sung. Stotras being sung. And at a very early age of 8 or 9, she started composing hymns in praise of the Lord. And Tiruvalmukha, even today, the hymns composed by Andal in 5th, 6th century are sung in every temple of South India. Every temple of South India. And as she grew older, the father said, तुम्हारी अब शादी करानी है, marriageable age है. So she said, I will only marry Ranganathan, Swami Ranganatha. That उनका विग्रह था. And she insisted, I want to. And the priests had become very fond because they had started singing her stotras. And they saw her dedication and devotion. An actual marriage was arranged between Andal and the Ranganath Vigraha in the Tanjavur temple. And they say when the ceremony was complete, she merged in the Vigraha and a small bit of her sari remained outside Andal. It is said, जब वो मिरर को देखती थी, मिरर में अपने को देखती थी, तो उसको विष्णु दिखते थे, अपना आपका इमेज नहीं दिखता था. See, such identity. Now you have a garland of knowledge, a garland of classical knowledge put in the languages of the people. मराठी में, गुजराती में, तमिलनाडु में तमिल में, और इसमें पंजाबी का पंजाबी में, हिंदी में. और लोग कहते हैं कि ये तो देश एक है ही नहीं, इतनी भाषाएं बोली जाती हैं. भाषा अलग थी पर चिंतन एक था, उसका स्रोत भी एक था, सोर्स भी एक था, वैदिक थॉट. उस सारे this vernacularization plus the katha pravachan parampara. You know, Adi Shankaracharya himself was an expounder, and he died at the age of 32. But in that period, he covered India thrice by foot. He contested with Buddhism, established Advaita all over India, bound India into the thread of Advaita, unified the Indian consciousness, established Char Dham, Dwarka, Puri and Badrinath and Rameshwaram. He established 108 temples he built. One of them is still there in Devaprayag. The mandir in Devaprayag was established by Adi Shankaracharya. And even today, a Nambudiri is the priest. And you get the South Indian jo barfi hoti hai, you get that South Indian prasad even today. After 1200, 1300, 1400 years, you get that. So Adi Shankar he used to, like a sannyasi, stay outside the village. In the evening, villagers will come because they knew what is India. They knew a sannyasi है, ये कच्चा ही लेंगे, पका नहीं लेंगे. वो फल फूल लाते थे और ऑफर करते थे. तो कच्चा लाते थे राशन, वो उनके शिष्य पकाते थे या वो स्वयं पाकी होते थे, खुद पकाते थे. And then they will sit down and they will ask some question and Adi Shankar will explain in the language of the people. This tradition, Katha, even today, you open the television in the morning, you will find people either explaining Ramayana or Mahabharata or Bhagavad Purana or something, some Upanishad, they will be explaining. Oral tradition and the language of the people, all the recontextualization, relating it to the life today. Millions of people listen to those things. You see, Kapil Kapoor has a reach of a few hundred. But Murari Bapu or Swami Abdeshananda Giri, when they speak, millions of people listen. And that is how the oral tradition is the most democratic tradition of knowledge, because it spreads knowledge, and the only requirement for the learner is that he has his ears open. He doesn't need to read. He doesn't need to do anything. He has to listen. God has put an eyelid, but there is no ear lid. No ear lid. So you can listen. You can. Therefore, people who say women were not allowed to study the Vedas, Mahabharata, and all that is all utter nonsense. If they were not allowed to, how is it that Maitri can discuss philosophy with Yagnavalkya or Draupadi? Read Mahabharata, 9th Sarga, one Parva. Draupadi and Yudhishthir, Samvad. Entire verb is a discussion between Draupadi and Yudhishthir. Draupadi argues like a Nastik. She tells Yudhishthir that tum bade dharmatma ho. You have followed dharma, the path of dharma. What have you got? What have you got from that path? You are sitting under a tree. You have just eaten only the rice that I have boiled. What have you got? And look at Duryodhan, who says, I know what is dharma, I know what is a dharma, but I am not interested. I have taken their kingdom, I will not give it back. I will not give it back. And see, he is, in the palace, he is eating his silver vessels, and he is eating 56 kinds of food. What have you got from dharma? You are dharmatma, your brothers are dharmatma. Each one of them had the power to upturn the Kaurav Sabha, but when you quietly moved out, like good brothers, they all moved out after you. But what have you all got? You are sitting here. Boiled rice I make and you eat, and that's all. What have you got from following the path of dharma? Listen to Yudhishthir's answer. He says, when you disagree with your wife, you have to first say something nice. So he says, O Sundar Netron Wali, O beautiful eyed one, you are using the language of the atheists. तुम नास्तिकों की भाषा बोल रही. Now this is very beautiful what I am knowing. Further what he says, मैंने धर्म का रास्ता ये सोचकर कभी नहीं अपनाया कि मुझे मिलेगा क्या. I have never followed the path of dharma after considering what I will get out of it. Who follow dharma to get something out of it, they are traders in virtue. वो धर्म के व्यापारी हैं. धर्म के व्यापारी हैं. And Draupadi is still unconvinced. She says, when a leaf falls from a tree, or when a mala, motiyon ki mala, see, pearl necklace breaks and the pearls spread, or if a tree by the riverside falls into the river, the tree falls into the river, it is all by his will, God's will. You people, in spite of following dharma, are having this suffering, with his will. What does it mean? God is also not interested in dharma. You see? And then, great argument. It is wrong to blame God. And how, from where does this great learning come to Draupadi if women were not allowed to be educated? Can you tell me? Have you got one Draupadi in 5,000 years back in Europe? Have you got an Andal in the 5th century? Have you got a Mira in 16th century? 16th century Europe. And we listen to our feminist friends and say, "Bada dhakka hota hai aurton ko par." You know, Kanya Kubja. There is a phrase which is called Kanya Kubja. Kanya Kubja. मतलब कन्या जो कुबड़ी हो गई. In Kannauj, there were girls who were so studious, so devoted to learning कि वो बैठे बैठे पढ़ते पढ़ते कुबड़ी हो जाती थी. What does this mean? What does this mean? That they were not allowed to study. It is not only women who were not allowed to ritually recite Vedas in the temples. Even men who were not trained were not allowed to recite Vedas in the temples. Will anybody allow me today to go to Homi Bhabha Nuclear Center and allow me to give a lecture to them on nuclear physics? They will not even allow me to enter. That is it. Only the ritualistic enunciation and study were forbidden not only to women, but also to men of all castes. Of all castes, you see. So, ye hai. Anyways, so the Katha Pravachana Parampara, starting with Adi Shankara, coming to Swami Avadeshananda Giri ji, you know, who in every lecture comes up with something stunning. Something stunning. Well, our real scholars are not in the university. In fact, universities do not have scholars. Universities have businessmen, you know, employees. They are employees. They get a salary and they, you know, in our tradition, knowledge ko becha nahi jata tha. And I told you, so I think in one or you or some other people, that when Banaras Sanskrit College was opened by the British in 19th century, they requested some pandits to come and teach Sanskrit. And after 1 month, when they tried to give them a salary of 1 silver rupee, they refused. They said, "We don't sell knowledge." No pandit teaching in Sanskrit Varanasi College ever accepted a salary. So the English people found a method. On Diwali, they used to offer them. The commissioner, deputy commissioner would go to the pandit's house, touch their feet and offer them, you know, gifts on Diwali in silver and gold to make up for that. वो दक्षिणा है, वो दक्षिणा स्वीकार करते थे, सैलरी नहीं लेना है. ठीक, इसलिए आइए चलिए, बहुत हो गया. तो भारत में अगर इंडिया की सिविलाइजेशन कंटिन्यू कर रही है, क्योंकि इसका ज्ञान कंटिन्यू कर रहा है. इसका ज्ञान कंटिन्यू इसलिए कर रहा है कि जब संस्कृत भाषा समझने पढ़ने वाले लोग कम हो गए, तो हमारे चिंतकों ने संस्कृत के ग्रंथों में रखे हुए ज्ञान को लोक भाषा में डाल के लोगों तक पहुंचाया. उसको या तो लिख के, या भाष्य लिख के, टीका लिख के, या ट्रांसलेट करके, या फिर प्रवचन दे के, कथा प्रवचन दे के, कथा प्रवचन करके उन्होंने, वो क्या कहते हैं, मुरारी बापू एक बार कहते हैं, वारे मौज फकीरा दी. मुरारी बापू सिंग्स गुरु नानक. Imagine, you know, this is continuity. Murari Bapu today, 21st century, or 21st or 22nd century, 21st century. You see, he sings Guru Nanak, 15th century. Vare moj fakirandi, na pirandi na hirandi, vare moj fakirandi. And he sings with such devotion, tears come to his eyes. And the people who listen, what do they learn? They learn that, you know, non-acquisitiveness, non-possession, non-desire for a possession, you see, is a great thing. The greatest happiness comes to people who are simple, who are anonymous, जिनको कोई नहीं जानता, जो बिल्कुल सादे हैं. वो लोगों की सबसे ज्यादा हैप्पीनेस होती है, हैप्पीनेस होती है. And I will conclude by giving you a small narrative from Mahabharata. In Mahabharata, there is a girl, Pingala. Pingala is a Nagarvadhu, but today we call prostitute. We don't have such words. We used to call them Nagarvadhu. She was the wife of the city. And generally they were not easily approachable. Not everybody could go. There were rules. So Pingala was a Nagarvadhu in a forest. And a young prince went and he fell in love with her. And he said that you don't do this now. I'll make a house for you here. You stay here. This is my house, he said. You stay here. I will come after 21 days. And I will take you away and we'll marry and then this. So Pingala lives in that house, very happy. रोज फूल तोड़ती है, करती है, गाती है, गाना तो उसको आता ही था, नृत्य करती है, खुश रहती है. 18 दिन हो जाते हैं, एक्साइटमेंट होती है कि अब 3 दिन और हैं. 21 दिन हो गए, 22 दिन हो गए, 23 दिन हो गए, 30 दिन हो गए, वो नहीं आया. He didn't come. महीना हो गया, 1.5 महीना हो गया. She cannot sleep. She cannot sleep. And she is terribly, unrest. And then the narrator says, after 41 days had elapsed, after 21, 62nd day, today, Pingala sleeps peacefully. आज वो बड़ी शांति से सो रही है, because she has substituted non-desire for desire. उसने desire की जगह non-desire रख दी है, इसलिए आज बड़ी शांति से सो रही है. Well, thank you very much. Namaskar. Thank you. Are you still awake or you are all asleep?
So could we take some questions? I would request the faculty to please unmute your mic. And I see Sagar ji's hands up. Please ask your question, Sagar ji.
कौन?
ज्ञान के महासागर कपिल सर को साक्षात प्रणाम.
नमस्कार जी.
सर मुझे एक रिक्वेस्ट है कि वो पाणिनि जो किताब है आपकी, वो कहाँ से मैं खरीद सकता हूँ, कहाँ पे मिल सकती है, वो कृपया.
सर वो डीके प्रिंट वर्ल्ड
मार्गदर्शन.
है, डीके प्रिंट वर्ल्ड है जिसने छापा है, डीके प्रिंट वर्ल्ड. और दिल्ली में वो आपको गूगल में अगर आप इंटरनेट में ढूंढेंगे डीके प्रिंट वर्ल्ड तो उसमें आ जाएगा every detail. I believe it is also perhaps these days available in Amazon also. I don't know because I don't go there. But DK Print World का पूरा उसका लिस्ट वगैरह बुक्स का सारा आ जाता है उसमें.
जी सर. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया सर.
धन्यवाद.
Who else would like? Anybody else would like to ask Kapil ji? May I see your hands?
आप ही प्रश्न पूछ लीजिए ऋचा जी कुछ.
सर मेरा एक ही प्रश्न है, which may not be very related, कि आप ठहरे इंग्लिश के प्रोफेसर, आपने संस्कृत डिपार्टमेंट और भारतीय ज्ञान परंपरा में आपने इतना लीप कैसे लिया? How did Kapil Kapoor ji become Kapil Kapoor ji? We would like to know.
That's a long story.
आपने क्या डिसिप्लिन रखा सर? आपने इस फोकस से क्रॉस एकेडमी.
My students near the end of my career used to say, सर आप काहे के प्रोफेसर हो? आप तो उल्ट शुल्ट कई चीजें पढ़ाते रहते हो. Well, I till the last semester I taught in JNU. I continued to teach 2 courses of English literature. Continued. One was the literary thought from Plato to Eliot. And it was a very popular course, like all other courses. The second, 19th century British life, literature and thought. These 2 courses I kept teaching. And I will shuffle with so many things, you know. Normally, a teacher had to teach sometimes one, sometimes two courses, because ours was a postgraduate university and a research university. But I always used to teach three, because the English students used to insist कि हमको पढ़ाइए, linguistic students used to insist हमको पढ़ाइए, और research students used to insist हमको भी पढ़ाइए. So research methodology I always taught along with Professor Gill, my senior, and I taught one course to linguistics, one to English, all through my life till the last of my semesters. And then how I moved to this, if you have time for 2-3 minutes, I can, but it is illuminative, it is illustrative. You see, I was a lecturer in English in Delhi University. I had been a lecturer for 5 or 6 years. And the linguistics department opened a postgraduate diploma in linguistics for teachers of English. Only for teachers of English in Delhi University. And the Professor Pandit ji, PB Pandit, linguistics ke, but a great professor. They addressed us. They said, आपके लिए postgraduate, post MA diploma है, आप करिए, it will help you, knowledge of linguistics will help you. So I took that course. The first course was diploma in applied linguistics, in linguistics. One teacher, may God, is Pandit Chandrasekhar ji, South Indian थे, टीका लगाते थे, and बाकी टीचर थे अमेरिका रिटर्न्ड, वो इंडियन थे, और वो भी हमको पढ़ाते थे. वो हमको पढ़ाते थे, ये जो थे चंद्रशेखर जी, उन्होंने हमको बताया, मुझे बातों बातों में, हमको नहीं क्लास में पढ़ा बताते थे, that there was a Panini, there was a Patanjali, and there was Bhartrihari, and there was Kannad, and there was a Gautama, and there was Jaimini, and he used to drop these names. Most frequently, he used to drop the name Panini. Now, I was young and a little mischievous. I'm still mischievous, but then I was a little more mischievous. I asked him one day, sir, was Panini a cousin of Toscanini? Toscanini was an Italian sculptor. So he said, बेटा वो तो आपके इलाके का था, ग्रामेरियन था, और एक ग्रामर उन्होंने लिखी है जिसको कोई कॉपी भी नहीं कर पाया 2500 साल में, for any other language. I became curious and I said, I will see. I went and I had not studied Sanskrit. So when I went, but of course, Nagari script, I went to the library, I looked at it, I couldn't understand. I went to him again, sir, ye to bilkul, it's like a fort. कोई टेबल ऑफ कंटेंट नहीं है, कोई इंडेक्स नहीं है, कोई इंट्रोडक्शन नहीं है, वो सीधा ही अपना अयुन अयोंग अयोच है वरट लाना जबंज जबगढ़ दस, वही नहीं समझ नहीं आता नहीं. तो कोई अंग्रेजी का ट्रांसलेशन बताइए. देन एससी वासु का ट्रांसलेशन 1896 का. So he told me that. I took it out, 2 big volumes, and every sutra of Panini analyzed into, you know, into padas, and then commentary of Bhaman Jayaditya, 7th century AD Kashmiri Pandits of grammar, with commentary also added on that, and translation. It became worse. इतनी सी अष्टाध्यायी, इतने बड़े बड़े 2 वॉल्यूम बन गए. तो हमको तो वो भी समझ नहीं आया कि सर ये तो समझ नहीं आता. तो ही सेड कि बेटा तुम न्यूक्लियर फिजिक्स पढ़ोगे तो समझ नहीं आएगा ना, नहीं आएगा. तो ये भी एक नहीं है, तो तुम छोड़ो, डिप्लोमा 1 साल का है, यू जस्ट, तुम संस्कृत भी बहुत ज्यादा नहीं जानते, स्कूल में थोड़ी बहुत पढ़ी है, तो तुम इसको छोड़ो, तुम वैसे ही अंग्रेजी में जो लिखा हुआ है पढ़ लो. मुझे उस वक्त ये कुछ नेचर में एक ऑब्स्टिनेसी है. मैंने कहा सर ऐसा मत कहिए. भाई मैं कहा ऑल राइट, आई हैड नॉट डिसाइडेड टू डू एमलेट इन योर डिपार्टमेंट, but I will do AMLET after my diploma. I will write the research in the final year, and I will write the research on my mother tongue, and I will use Panini's model. He said impossible. But for 3 years, my wife knows, I think I spent 18 hours in Delhi University Library. I read everything that I could get, this way, that way. And I made a practice of reading Bhagavad Gita, जिसमें संस्कृत के सूत्र को वर्टिकली हिंदी में पद बना के उसका अर्थ दिया होता था. उसको पढ़ना उसको every day I used to read Bhagavad Gita first thing in the morning. And gradually I began to understand Sanskrit. I need not go to the Hindi translation. Just by the sutra, I got. And I kept up with the practice. In 2 years, I was able to read the Sanskrit text, understand it. I couldn't speak. I can't speak it very fluently even now, but I can understand most complex Sanskrit philosophical texts. So I did that, and I wrote the thesis. I got 75% marks, and I topped the university. 30 years later, I met the Professor Annamalai. He was Professor Annamalai from Annamalai in South. And I went there as a head of a UGC team. And I asked the people that there was a Professor Annamalai. He says, he's still alive. He's 94. So I said, can I see him? I went to see him. And old man, and I touched his feet. And I said, I am Kapil Kapoor. ये हमारी culture है. आप बड़े आदमी के सामने हम अपना नाम लेके अपने को इंट्रोड्यूस करते हैं. हम ये नहीं अस्यूम करते कि हम इतने इंपॉर्टेंट है, इसको पता है कि हम कौन है. हम बताते हैं, मैं कपिल कपूर. से अरे you are the boy who wrote that thesis, first thesis on Panini's model in Indian linguistics. I said yes. He remembered that because that was the first one. Nobody had worked on Indian theory. Then I moved to JNU, and my head of the department, she said, okay, we have received book gifts from publishers of new literatures in English. African literature, American literature, and Commonwealth literature, New Zealand literature, Australian literature, Canadian literature. He said, you are young. This is only coming to India now. You take to these. An international air ticket will be in your pocket all the time. I'm glad she spoke that sentence because it created a resistance in me. कि मैं इतनी किताबें पढ़ूं इसलिए कि एक एयर टिकट पॉकेट में मिलेगी, एयर टिकट. तो मैंने कहा मैं बताऊंगा जी आपको 2 दिन बाद. मेरे से बड़ी थी, तो 2 दिन बाद मैं गया, क्या सोचा, मैंने कहा जी मैं नहीं पढ़ूंगा. तो क्या पढ़ोगे? So I said that in this country, great granthas have been composed, which, not to speak of understanding, I can't even read. And it is a shame. I am a teacher in an important university, and I can't read even my own books. So I will read them, and when I start understanding them, I will teach them. She said, you are mad. I said, all right. And in 1975, I started the first course in Indian grammatical tradition in India. And then it went on, and I started teaching individual texts. In 1979, the Dean, Nambar Singh Ji, well-known Nambar Singh Ji, he told my well-wisher in Delhi University, कि इसको कुछ समझाओ, ये किसी भी सब्जेक्ट में प्रोफेसर नहीं बनेगा. कभी अंग्रेजी पढ़ाता है, कभी ग्रामर पढ़ाता है, कभी भर्तृहरि पढ़ाने लग जाता है, तो इसको कुछ समझाइए. Then I asked Srivastava ji, who is no more, तो मैं छोड़ दूं, बंद कर दूं? He said, no, तुम तीनों सब्जेक्ट में प्रोफेसर बनोगे. And Madam Richa ji, look at the Vani. In 1986, I was offered professorship in linguistics in Bombay University when Billy Gary retired. I didn't accept because my child was studying and my wife was teaching. I am a professor of English, and when I set up the Sanskrit Center and I started teaching Sanskrit thinkers, the university EC, Executive Council, made me concurrent professor of Sanskrit. तो तीनों में प्रोफेसर बन गए, जैसे श्रीवास्तव जी ने कहा था. तो वही पढ़ाते रहे जितना, because you see Indian knowledge जो है वो fragmented नहीं है. You cannot do grammar without philosophy. You cannot do poetics without grammar and without philosophy. Integrated knowledge है. So हम एक से एक में चलते गए. मतलब ग्रामर ली, फिर पोइटिक्स, फिर फिलॉसफी, एंड देन अगर आप फिलॉसफी, मुझे एक बार कहा गया Can I indulge in a little more autobiography? एक बड़े डीपी चट्टोपाध्याय जी बहुत बड़े विद्वान थे. उन्होंने सेंटर फॉर सिविलाइजेशन, he was the commerce minister in Indira Gandhi's government. He was a professor of philosophy in Calcutta University earlier, and he was a very eminent professor. And for some reason, like quite a few other old people, he was fond of me and he believed in me. So I had written several articles for his 53-volume series on Indian culture and civilization. I had written several articles. One day he called me and said कि मुझे कोई मिल नहीं रहा, तुम एक आर्टिकल आत्मा पे लिखो. आत्मा. अच्छा जी. So मैंने कहा 6 महीने तो मिलेंगे ना. He said yes, 6 months you take. So I started studying. After 4.5 months, I had written 19 pages by that time. I went to Chattopadhyay ji and said कि जी मैं नहीं लिखूंगा. He said why? मैंने कहा I am more convinced by people like the Buddhists, the Charavakas, who argue that Atma does not exist, that there is no Atma. और मेरा जो अपना जो जिस संप्रदाय का मैं हूं उसमें आत्मा तो है. मैं अब इसको परस्यू करूंगा तो मैं अपना ही विश्वास खो दूंगा, तो मैं तो अपने संप्रदाय की तरफ धोखा हो गया मेरा. जब तक मुझे समझ नहीं आ जाता, कन्विक्शन नहीं हो जाती कि आत्मा है, तब तक मैं ये आर्टिकल नहीं लिखता. And I didn't. I stopped it. Later on, I got an answer. I got the answer, and I got the answer from Buddhists. But then by that time, there were other things to do, and I didn't go back to that article. So ये है कहानी.
सर मैंने ये क्वेश्चन बहुत इंटेंशनली पूछा कि बिकॉज टू बिकम अ टीचर needs so much of tapas, so much of focus, so much of discipline.
You see, I never used to press my clothes. I used to wash my own clothes because my grandfather had said, अपना काम खुद करना चाहिए, सेवा ग्रहण नहीं करनी चाहिए. मैंने अपनी बेटी से कभी पानी का गिलास नहीं मांगा या मिसेस से कि मुझे पानी का गिलास ला के दो. नेवर. सेवा ग्रहण नहीं करनी चाहिए. कपड़े धोता था, ऐसे ही पहन जाता था. My daughter, when she was small, she used to object कि पापा कपड़े प्रेस तो करो, और क्या वही शर्ट रोज धो के नहाते हो, धो के ऐसे टांग जाते हो, अगले दिन पहन लेते हो, तो तुम कपड़े. But later on she told me, Papa, you don't need to change. आपका ठीक है. It doesn't matter what you wear. It doesn't matter how you wear. Francis Bacon has said, some persons lend dignity to clothes. In other cases, clothes lend dignity to the person. This is Francis Bacon. So it doesn't matter कि आप क्या पहनते हैं, क्या नहीं पहनते हैं. I was a visiting professor in UK, and the mayor of Belfast. A mayor is a very important position in UK. He expressed a desire to meet me because I was in Northern Ireland, Ulster University. So I had an appointment. And my daughter rang me up to say कि मैंने आपको 3 कमीज फुल बाजू की नई खरीद के दी हैं. मैंने आपके बैग में socks भी डाली हैं because I never wore socks. I never wear socks. I rarely wear full sleeve. अब उम्र हो गई है, नहीं तो I never wore full sleeve, only half sleeve. And I never wore a tie and did not wear a suit. ये जो मेरी ड्रेस है, यही ड्रेस है पुराने जमाने से, यही बस आधी बाजू का ये और बिना सॉक्स के. She rang me up to say कल मेयर के पास जा रहे हो, कपड़े ठीक पहन के जाना, नहीं तो उनकी इंसल्ट होती है. पूरी बाजू का पहनना और टाई नहीं पहननी तो सूट पहन के जाना और सॉक्स पहनना. मैं कहा हाँ, but I forgot. Again I went like this. क्या फर्क पड़ता है? It didn't matter to the mayor what I am wearing, and it doesn't matter to me what he thinks about me. It doesn't matter. Lightness है, उसी करना होता है, तो बड़ा ठीक है. The more anyways, चलिए बहुत हो गया प्रवचन. ये कथा प्रवचन है. है ना? This is Katha Pravachan Parampara. Thank you, ji.
Pranam, sir. Kya hi kahun? I'm sure each one of us who is listening to you here on live stream, there must be transformation happening in each one of us.
आपकी कृपा है. तो मैं जाऊं फिर, आज्ञा है.
Pranam, sir. We'll meet again soon. Thank you. Srihari, can you please end the session with a prayer?
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamataya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om.
With this, we finish with the first week of the FTP. 1/3 is over.